Hello everyone, welcome to the Scumdog's Kennel. I'm your host, Chris Williams, and in today's Cryptid Corner mini-episode, I have two more bizarre accounts. This time, both spiritually bizarre and ufological. Let's get into the first account. White-robed apparitions. A witness describes two unexplained encounters inside Livermore, California home, and how these incidents truly affected him and his family, folks, as well as basically, perhaps how he dealt with it in the future. Let's get into this account now by reading the opening. In September 1997, a Livermore, California resident experienced two separate nighttime encounters inside the same home, each involving a distinct human-like figure that appeared suddenly and vanished without sound. The figures differed in appearance, clothing, and behavior, yet shared a common sense of purpose that left a lasting impression on the witness. What these apparitions represent remains open to interpretation, but the encounters echo descriptions found in ancient religious texts and modern paranormal case files alike. I would have to say probably, folks, because they sound truly bizarre. Are they demons, spirits, angels, maybe even the fair folk? You know, the ultra-terrestrials, like I like to bring up so often, folks. Or maybe they were just alien beings. Let's get into this article and read the full story that the witness has for us now. I was alone in my bedroom, sitting on my bed, when a man suddenly appeared at the foot of the bed. He was dressed entirely in a white robe, with white hair and a full white beard. Well, if he was wearing red, I would have said he was Santa Claus, folks. Either way, he sort of sounds like God, or maybe some other godly entity. Let's read on. The figure raised his hand and spoke to me in a language I did not recognize. I do not recall feeling threatened, but I was stunned and unable to respond before the figure vanished. It could also be that he, encountered maybe some sort of druid, folks. Sort of gives me that feeling, folks, like some wise wizard or maybe shaman. But let's read on. Several days later, late at night, I was laying in my mother's bed next to her when a second encounter occurred. This time, a different human-looking man appeared from behind a wall that led into the bathroom. He was dressed in a gold robe and wore a matching hat. The figure walked slowly in front of my mother's closet, stopped, bent forward slightly as if acknowledging something, and then disappeared. The two figures were clearly different. I later learned that similar beings are described in the Book of Daniel in the Holy Bible, which made the experiences even more unsettling and difficult to dismiss. I have to say, from the descriptions, they really feel like, we're hearing a story about basically, wizards here, folks, or, as I said, some sort of really, really high up there mythical beings, because they're dressed like they're basically part of, some sort of fantasy story here, folks. Are they some sort of shamans? Angels? They do sound very similar to those kinds of beings, folks. But they don't have the classic, truly horrifying appearances that actual encounters with, biblical angels are said to entrail. These encounters, while frightening, don't basically have that air about them. They feel too friendly for that, folks. They could have been guardian angels, I suppose, but I just don't know for sure. But both accounts, or basically not both accounts, it's just all part of one story here, folks, but both encounters are truly very out there, folks. I don't know exactly what they really mean. I can only surmise that maybe these beings were checking up on this family, that they might have been guardian angels or maybe some sort of protective entities, folks. We just simply don't know. Hopefully, they were, good wizards, I guess. Let's move on to the next article. Experiencer reports missing time and possible abduction. Triangular UFO hovered over farm near Rockford, Illinois. Let's get into this story of another extraterrestrial encounter and hear exactly what went down. During a summer night in rural northern Illinois, a gathering of friends ended with a close-range encounter involving a large triangular object hovering over a farm. What followed included a sudden beam of light, unexplained missing time, and lingering dreams that suggest more may have occurred than the witness can consciously recall. The details mirror patterns found in many high strangeness UFO cases involving rural locations and isolated witnesses. The witness lived on a farm outside Rockford, surrounded by open countryside, dairy farms, and cornfields. On this particular night, several friends were visiting. There were 4 people present, enjoying a warm summer evening outdoors. The witness was playing guitar through an amplifier, drinking beer casually, and spending time with friends under a clear, starry sky. The gathering lasted several hours, and by approximately 2 a.m, the friends began preparing to leave. The witness's mother and stepfather were out of town, leaving him alone at the house after everyone departed. So it sounds normal so far, folks, but apparently something else was going on. As the night progressed, the atmosphere suddenly changed. Strong wind began blowing as if a storm were approaching, yet the sky remained completely clear with no visible clouds. At the same time, the dairy cows in the barn became agitated and noisy, behaving as if something unseen was disturbing them. One friend commented on how strange the weather felt and decided to leave early, concerned about an oncoming storm. After he departed, the remaining two friends also began to leave. As they pulled out of the long driveway, the witness noticed a large dark object hovering above one of the farm's corn bins. The witness tried to flash the house lights to get his friends to stop and look, but they did not notice and continued driving away. So the witness was alone with whatever this was, folks. I imagine there's a lot more to this story, and we're about to learn about it. But I can imagine how frightening this guy was thinking. Did he think it was some sort of alien craft, or do you think he was looking at some sort of, unknown military vehicle, an aircraft that was flying just so over his farm? I kind of doubt that, folks. It sounds too silly, but maybe there's some merit to that idea. But a lot of people go to that idea to explain away what they saw, instead of saying it was aliens. But let's continue with this guy's story, folks. Turning his attention back to the object, the witness walked toward the corn bin. He observed that the object was massive, triangular, and larger than the corn bin itself. Dim, pulsating lights were visible along its surface. The object remained completely silent and motionless. It's sort of hard to believe that his friends didn't notice that, from the sounds of it. The witness was holding a beer in his right hand, which he recalls clearly as he is right-handed and habitually used that hand while staring at the object. A powerful beam of light suddenly struck him like a spotlight. The light was extremely bright and completely overwhelmed his vision. The next thing he remembers is the light retracting back into the object, which then shot upward at tremendous speed and vanished. At that moment, something felt profoundly wrong. What had been full darkness moments earlier was now early dawn. The sun was beginning to rise. The witness noticed that the beer he had been holding was now in his left hand, even though he was certain he had never switched hands. Approximately 4 hours had passed with no memory of what occurred during that time. In the days and years that followed, the witness experienced recurring nightmares involving being placed on a table and examined by unknown beings. He believes he may have been taken aboard the object and returned, though he cannot consciously recall the event. He chose to report the incident in the hope that others with similar experiences would recognize the patterns and feel less alone. Because, I would imagine that a lot of people want to feel that way, folks, that they're not alone and that other people have had these weird experiences. But as I said, folks, do you think what he saw was some sort of government vehicle? Now, it's been said before, folks, that in some accounts with, UFOs, some people were able to see them while others don't. Maybe his friends didn't see this UFO, even though it was pulsating with lights, was because they weren't meant to. Perhaps this entire abduction was done by the government on this man, folks, because they wanted him to come forward with this story and tell others about it. But in reality, it was all a sham. Perhaps basically drugs, maybe something put in the beer, and all of this was planned out to make him think he was abducted by aliens. I'm saying this, folks, because, it kind of lines up nicely with what we read here, folks. How the witnesses who were driving away didn't see this thing. Well, our witness here, for whatever reason, remember, he just went up to this object under it, even though he probably should have stayed in his house away from this thing. But he felt, for whatever reason, compelled to go up there, folks. I'm saying that maybe something was done to this man to make him go up to this thing. Maybe even basically remembers going up to it, folks. Maybe he was given false memories of walking up to it, and his friends weren't even there to begin with to see this object. Maybe it was all fabricated, placed into his mind to make him think all of this went down exactly the way this guy remembers it did. I wouldn't be surprised, basically, if, his friends already left and there was no UFO in the sky, and when this guy was actually abducted, all of this was implanted directly into his head, is what I'm saying there, folks. I would not be surprised if that's the actual truth. But what about the beings we read earlier who are wearing white robes or gold robes, folks? Were they angels? Fairies? Wizards, for all we know, folks? Certainly from the way they were walking through walls, folks, to give you a mind that they're some sort of spiritual or magical beings. And this story with basically this UFO is just as weird. Anyway, we're at the end, so please go subscribe to my YouTube channel. Read comics, they're bad for you. You can use the YouTube link down below in descriptions or the chat to go subscribe to me. Hit that like button for me. Make sure you're still subscribed. Leave some comments down below. Hit that bell for notifications. Make sure you hit the part of the bell that'll give you all future notifications, and please share this video out. I'm Chris Williams from the Scumdogs Kennel. Thank you all for joining me. I'll be back again tomorrow with another great video, so be sure to come back again then. Till next time, folks, I'll see you all again soon.